Good afternoon, Westwood, and welcome to episode 38 of the Wolverine Report. Joined as always, co-host Evan Cardimino, Charlotte Lynch, technical director, and I am Morgan Donahue. And folks, today we have a very special guest, a 2023 Westwood High School graduate, standout on football and the track teams, and doing it at the next level for a nationally ranked Division III program, very historic program, and looking forward to talking about this past season as well as, the history and the rivalries, playing for John Carroll University. But we are joined by Westwood High School grad, John Carroll University football player, Jack McDaniels. Jack, thank you so much for joining us, and how are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm great.
Absolutely. So what an incredible season you had, 9-3. And, you guys kicked off your season going up against the Iron, playing, Whitewater, Wisconsin Whitewater, for folks at home, and Mount Union, like the two perennial top teams in Division III football, always around the top and always competing for a national championship. You guys had them very early in the season and you had a great game versus Mount Union, very close game, and then rifled off 9 wins in a row. To then get a playoff berth, you guys had a fantastic playoff win at home at Donahue Stadium, a really remarkable place to play and historic place, and have a really terrific season, And if you were to look at how last season unfolded from start to finish, could you have envisioned, the success that you guys had last year?
Starting off the season with 2 preseason top 5 ranked teams, is not easy for anybody. Yeah. Especially since we had so many seniors that were so important to our team last year: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, a bunch of defensive guys as well graduate. We kind of didn't know what type of team we were going to be. Going into Whitewater, it was a really brutal game. Yeah. That was a great stadium and a great team, and they kind of handled us pretty easily. Yeah. And then going into Mount Union, we actually, had a pretty terrific game. Yeah. It was still a very tough game. I love the environment. That was my first time being at Mount, but it was a great environment. It really showed me why that rivalry is a thing today. Yeah. And then after those 2 losses, the message was kind of just, keep moving forward. Yeah. Got to learn, got to improve. We were not the best. We weren't the best team we could possibly be in either of those games, even though we scored somewhere in the 30s in Mount. Yeah. And, we just kept sticking by that every day in practice and the meetings, and then every game going forward until the playoffs. Yeah. And we really didn't know that we were going to make the playoffs until pretty much the last week of the season. Yeah. And, when we were in the playoffs, it was the same thing, just keep winning every day. Yeah. Practice, lifts, everything. Yeah. And that first game was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome.
Not too many teams can get into the playoffs. It's a very difficult thing to do. You got to be basically ranked, within the top 25 nationally. Or is it 32 now?
32.
32. And then to get a home game on top of that is very impressive. What was that? I'm sure, you get chills thinking about home playoff games at Donahue Stadium. Talk us through what that experience was like.
Yeah, that was the first home playoff game in a long time. Yeah. And when, my dad went to John Carroll, and he never had a home playoff game. And not many people at John Carroll have had a home playoff game. That was a special experience. There were banners all around the school, and seeing everyone support the football team was a very special thing. Yeah. And then even to win that game was really awesome as well.
Now, when you're part of a team, and it's similar to Westwood, there is a special connection to the alumni. They're always keeping tabs, and when there is a year like that, they're looking in and they're proud, and I see that a lot with Westwood. I see a lot of alumni checking in on the season, and when Westwood beats Holliston, they're fired up. A lot of the alumni are at the games, and when Westwood alumni know Westwood's in the playoffs, they're fired up and they're rooting for them. They want to see that happen. I'd imagine it had to be the same for JCU. How proud and excited were the alumni for that opportunity, and what were they? Did you see a lot of them at the game, in the stadium?
So I have a funny story. I can't remember. It was late in the season though. Special teams coordinator Frank Ross of the Houston Texans. Yeah. He went to John Carroll. Yeah. And he sent in a video, not asked to do anything, but just sent it in for the team to watch. It was him basically just saying, you know, keep moving forward.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you guys are doing an awesome job.
Love
And
that.
a lot of the alum are, you know, really rooting for you guys.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I mean, you know, my dad knows a bunch of John
Yeah.
Carroll alum as well.
Yeah.
And he was saying that all of them were just saying how awesome the team was and how fun it was to watch the team this year.
How cool is that to know that they're watching, they're keeping, you know, tabs, and then to hear that, like they're seeing a lot of that hard work being put in.
It's really, I mean, it's really awesome. You know, especially since the fantastic alum that we have at John Carroll.
Yeah.
Really an amazing thing just to have that in the back of the mind that, you know, a lot of these people, these great people that have done amazing things in life are watching you.
Some total legends, by the way. So Don Shula, you know, your dad, absolute legend. Nick Casario, Romans, some of the Romans, you know, siblings as well. What makes for such a special environment, special community that has had, you know, these legends come through the program and then be at the top, the top of the game of football?
I think the thing that makes John Carroll special, and especially our football program, is all of us are striving to be those people. You know, people that are talked about as alum because of the things that they're doing. That's something that personally, I'm striving for. And I can say a lot of the people that I go to school with as well are striving for the exact same thing. And that's across the entire community. That's not just the football team.
And a game of football is full of exceptional leadership. And, you know, when you start off the season, first of all, to even put 2 perennial top 5 teams on your schedule is great leadership. That's someone, you know, your coaching staff and the people involved around the program, they're focused on getting you guys better, you know, and making you guys the team, the caliber team that you were to go into the playoffs, win that playoff game. But also it takes exceptional leadership when you do, you know, take a tough loss on the chin, you know, to kind of walk you through it and say, we're going to be better for this. You know, we're going to, you know, to show also the light at the end of the tunnel of how good this team really is, where you might not know it. You know, who are some of those exceptional leaders that are part of the team, whether it's coaches or some of the players?
Yeah, definitely our head coach, Jeff Behrman. He played with my dad, actually. He was a fifth-year senior when my dad was a freshman. And, you know, he's fought through a lot of wins and losses in his life. You know, he's been a great D3 football coach. He went to Union. He coached at Union and led them to a lot of success. And he came to John Carroll and is doing the exact same thing. You know, he always has a great message in the meeting, you know, the day after a game, whether it's a win or a loss. He always has the right thing to say on and off the practice field. And, I mean, all the coaches around him are just, you know, doing the exact same thing in their own different ways, different positions and everything like that. But, you know, he's kind of at the head of the table with that, and he's doing an amazing job.
And you guys, you know, you're playing in the OAC last year, and that's a strong conference, and you guys are playing Whitewater and Mount Union. How much do you guys embrace that challenge of playing some of the best in all of D3, and you know, what's the messaging from coaches there on that?
I think for me, the message is, you know, that's who you want to be. You want to be playing some of the best talent. You know, you want to be playing some of the best programs in D3. You don't want to be playing a bunch of teams that just, you know, haven't won a whole lot. And to face, you know, we've played both those teams the past 2 seasons I've been at John Carroll. And we're going to be playing another team this year who's just in that same category, Johns Hopkins, in week 2. To face the season off with those 2 teams is a really special thing, you know, because you don't have many games where you're going to be challenged a whole lot. And we were challenged those games, and I love it.
Yeah, that's going to be a terrific game, and that's early, I believe, in the season
Week
as well.
2.
Week 2. Are you guys going to be hopping on the bus for that, or are you gotta fly?
Probably hopping on the bus. We had to travel to Whitewater this past year, and that was 8 hours, so I'd say the same thing.
Now, what's your go-to on those long bus rides? You know, what do you do to preoccupy boredom?
Sleep.
Any film study or any of that? Or
for me, no, not as much, but
Yeah.
I guess some guys might.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's sometimes it's overdoing it, and being on the bus ride is, you know, a little overdoing it. But what a special place for football Ohio is. You know, so the NFL Football Hall of Fame is in Ohio. It's there for a reason. You know, the history. But colleges, obviously you have the big time programs, and you have you know, the Division III programs that are just top schools when it comes to football that are sending, even the D3 schools, sending players to the NFL. London Fletcher out of John Carroll, what a player he was. Undersized guy, play sideline to sideline, just got it done for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The epitome of just what a guy, his talent and being able to, prove the doubters wrong when it came to size and it came to balling out and getting it done. And then on the other side, you mentioned a school like Mount Union. You have Pierre Garçon, who had an incredible career in the NFL. A guy like Dom Capers, a genius mind when it comes to football at these historic programs. And the high school programs there are incredible as well. How special is it to look at the game of football in the state of Ohio when you look at the high school level and also the college level, and how much different was that compared to Massachusetts?
Very different, at least from where I come from in Westwood. And I'm not trying to crap on Westwood by any means. I loved our environment when I played there, but it's nothing like Ohio. And I'm so glad I get to experience that. I think the biggest change is that everyone there cares about football. Like, it's ridiculous. Everyone. Parents, students, teachers, everybody. It's almost like a religion there, and I don't want to say that in a bad way. It's a good way. It's it's football, and then there's no real other sport that's competing with how popular football is there. And I don't know why it is, but that's just the way it is down there. But it's awesome.
I'd say it's ingrained in their culture, and it's a part of who they are. And when you look at the games there, just the attendance at the games, I'd say is probably the first differentiator. Thousands of people at those games and loud. And Westwood gets a good showing. Those Friday nights, when I used to drive down to Manhattan, I'd be like, that's a pretty darn good showing. And you guys don't know how good you had it. Like, we used to have to play Saturdays at 10 a.m. at Westwood, and that's not the most popular time to get out there and support your Westwood Wolverines.
No, it is not.
Especially, we didn't have lights or anything. At one point, we didn't have a field. We had to play our games at Zavarian. So, but it's when I think of Ohio football, I just think of the high school game. I think of the college game. I also think of Pennsylvania too. Very competitive, those two states. Tom Lydon talks about how he covered Pennsylvania sports and how religious high school football was. They used to do a Friday TV show and just go through, they'd be talking about CB West and, some of these historic programs. And he has a funny story about, Chad Henne was a quarterback in Pennsylvania. And when he chose Michigan over Penn State, it was like so sacrilegious. But like, it was top news, of who, what's going on high school football wise, who's going where, the storylines and all that. And, those are special. I wish we had it in Massachusetts. At one point we kind of did have, we do the high fives in the coverage, but it's just, it's not like that level, which is just extraordinary.
No, but I mean, I'm glad to see that you guys are bringing back some of the sports culture here in Westwood. I'm seeing that a little bit more in Massachusetts, just in general. Covering sports and especially football. I mean, I wish football was as big here as it was in Ohio.
Well, it's still amazing memories. I mean, when it's different, but still has a lot of similarities in terms of just meeting some of lifelong friends, having lifelong memories. And also, a question that I want to ask you is, football and also life, so many similarities. And when you have a great character coach like you have at John Carroll, he's teaching you leadership, and obviously the game, but how much is he also preparing you for life when it comes to character, when it comes to setting goals, working hard, waking up early, being disciplined, all of these characteristics that are so important in life?
That might be the bigger thing he's trying to teach us, rather than just the game of football. Is trying to teach us to be great people. Being prepared for life, prioritizing the right things over the wrong things, school, family, and it's I couldn't be more thankful for it. We would have meetings this off season, last off season as well, where we would have something called a winner's manual, and we would read a different section of it every time we met. And it was kind of, leadership. It was like a bunch of different aspects of life that make you a great person. And we would read about all of that and then meet about it and then talk and, socialize with our teammates and be paired randomly to build a better relationship with our team as a whole, which is another thing that I think a lot of football teams suffer from. I know I did in high school at some times. They get very cliquey. They get very cliquey. And not everyone is friends with everyone on the team. I would like to say I'm friends with most people on the team, but there are definitely some people that I've probably never even said a word to. And for whatever reason that may be, it's just how sports work, every sport. But I've experienced it more in football than any other sport. But I think my coach is doing a very great job trying to, get that out of the way and try and make the team better and make better people of us.
To break that mold, it is kind of at the high school level. It's just kind of the nature, and kind of just you're a high schooler, and then when you get to college, the college coaches do a good job of breaking that mold and make you realize you are dependent on this player next to you and this player next to you to achieve this goal, and then you appreciate when all these people are doing the same thing to help you and you help them to chase after that goal. It's a special bond, really, really special bond.
Yeah, and you mentioned that's one big difference there between high school and college. Talk about some of the other differences between high school and college sports, both on and off the field.
I think one of the biggest differences, kind of both on and off the field, for me at least, I'm the only kid from Massachusetts at my school on my team. And I knew no one when I walked into that school for the first time as a part of that program. And the thing that I think a lot of kids are worried about is, am I going to be able to be, social with my team? Am I going to be able to make friends? And the way I experienced it, I immediately had 120 friends that I hung out with all the time. And especially when you come into camp, the only thing that you're doing is football with your guys. There's no one else on campus. My freshman year, we had 2 weeks where there were no other sports teams on campus, and we were just hanging out, meetings, practice, lifts, and then at night when we had free time, hanging out in the dorms with all the other freshman football players that I didn't know. And I couldn't tell you how long it took for me to make my friend group, but probably only a couple days. And now it's solidified. And so I would say that's probably the biggest thing between high school and college is people are way more mature with socializing, and they're not as afraid to put themselves out there and, make a group.
How important was that for you where you could have gone and played football at a school close by? You could have gone to a school where you had a couple teammates and you're off to a good start, and feeling comfortable. But how important was it for you to go outside your comfort zone, to look at these, things that people that would seem scary as opportunities for growth and to, feel like you're growing from, taking these things head on?
Yeah, I would say the way I experienced recruiting coming out of high school was a little different than other people. I had a lot of opportunities at the D3 level, both in football and in track. And I would say the first thing I looked at was, what do I want to play? Like, what can I see myself playing for the next 4 years? And it pretty easily became football. Right? I loved track, but it was not the same as football. And I thought I would be able to, go farther in football than in track. The second thing was, what are my values for the program I want to be in? And it was winning, and it was becoming a better person for myself, right? And the schools I looked at, Endicott, Salve Regina, WPI, and then there were a couple schools in Cleveland, apart from John Carroll, mainly Baldwin Wallace, which was also one of our rivals, but we beat them a lot. So
there we go.
That's a little different. But the Cleveland schools separated themselves from the Massachusetts schools and the Northeast schools just because of the reputation they built in their programs with winning and with wanting to win. Some of I don't want to talk bad about some of the programs here, but I didn't feel as like there was an urgency to win as much, right? And maybe that was from, me going to a bunch of camps and talking to a lot of coaches for very short amounts of time. But I also could have played with some of my high school teammates at different places, but, I wanted to be at a place where I felt like I was going to win.
Yeah.
I felt like I was going to, become a better player and a better person.
Yeah.
And so then that kind of narrowed it down to John Carroll, and they were the ones who treated me the best.
Yeah.
I felt like the coaches really cared about every recruit they had. And I see that still, I see it still. And I'm also from that, the coaching staff that originally recruited me at John Carroll is not the same coaching staff that I had when I got there.
Yeah.
There was an interim head coach that was there when I was getting recruited. There were new coordinators that were there when I was getting recruited. And the minute that Coach Behrman got the job, I had a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Not the exact minute, but
Yeah.
pretty darn close.
Yeah.
And it felt like he cared just as much as the other group of coaches that were recruiting me.
Yeah.
And I was just so amazed with that, and so that narrowed it down to John Carroll. And at that point, like, social life and knowing anyone didn't really matter to me.
Yeah. Well, you definitely put a lot of great thought into it, and important thoughts. I mean, you were thinking about your future when you made that decision. How also special, though, was the connection? So you mentioned, your dad went there, and now you're playing at the same school that your dad played. And to have that connection of, being a part of that same program and that culture. And then not on top of that, too, playing football in the state of Ohio. I believe your grandfather coached in Ohio. Like, to have that connection with, some important men in your life, it's got to be pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
My dad, he hadn't been to John Carroll ever since he graduated, or a couple years after.
Yeah.
And for him to come back for the first time and be like, wow, this building was here, this was here, this was the same name. Like, it was pretty cool to see that. And then also just being in the environment that, my family has been in. Both sides of my family are from Ohio.
Yeah.
One from Cleveland, one from a little bit further out from Cleveland, but it's still the same culture.
Yeah.
And it was pretty amazing to just see and still be a part of.
Yeah. And it's got to feel like home, too, having family out there, close by, seeing them at games and whatnot. And, the pregame texts, anything better than the pregame text. How much does that fire you up? It's just friends, family, getting you fired up, before games, big games.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and to have my family come for when I was a freshman, go to JV games and, also show up for the varsity games was pretty exciting.
Pretty cool.
That I had someone there to lean on.
Yeah. Awesome. When I watched you play at Westwood, you were terrific on both sides of the ball, which is somewhat rare. You see more, Dante Martucci played a little bit of both sides of the ball, Donahue as well. And you see, it's more so rare on the skilled side because it's a lot of running, and you got to be at the top of your game. And if you have some good depth, it's good to use them in those positions. And I could have seen you playing corner or wide receiver in college. How did you ultimately decide to choose wide receiver? Is that a more natural fit for you? Walk us through that.
So I was given the opportunity to choose.
Yeah.
Going into college, they kind of said, hey, we know you played both.
Yeah.
We like your film at both. You can decide, right? But you can't play both.
Yeah.
You can't. I wasn't good enough to the point where I could play both.
Yeah.
And for me, junior year, I was more impactful as corner.
Yeah.
At Westwood, I played pretty much every snap at corner.
Yeah.
I only got some receiver time.
Yeah.
And then in senior year, I kind of was able to step up at the slot and play pretty much every snap, both offense and defense, and special teams too. And I had way more fun playing receiver than I did corner at times.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the ball, you impact the game more than you do at corner.
Yeah.
The way that I was explained by my dad was, you only can impact the game at corner, maybe 3 times in a game, maybe.
Yeah.
And if you're good,
That's a good point.
you don't ever see the ball because you're always covering.
Just throw on the other side.
Yeah. And so receiver, I felt way more impactful. And so I think that was why I wanted to choose it.
Yeah.
Plus, I love offense a little bit more than I do love defense.
I can see that. So the other thing, having that defensive experience allows you to be a physical receiver, and you have to be that at the Division III level. I've always said that the Division III wide receivers are the most complete wide receivers because they block, they get downhill, and they stay on their blocks. And not to say they don't do that at the Division I or Division II levels. It's just they're a little scrappier. They know how important the run game is. Because it's going to help out the pass game too when it comes to play action, things like that. How much do you embrace having that defensive, background into your receiver game by getting physical and getting up on, cornerbacks and safeties?
Yeah, I mean, I love that thought that, D3 receivers are the most complete receivers because, I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Especially at John Carroll, we're praised that, if you don't block, you're not seeing the ball.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things we practice a lot is blocking.
Yeah.
Fits,
Yeah.
getting your hands where you need to get them, getting your hips right,
Yeah.
getting your feet right. But also, I think being able to play both receiver and DB in high school, it does give me a little bit of a sense of, okay, like this is what this guy's leverage tells me. Yeah. Or, playing this far off, I can read, the defense. This is cover 3. This is cover 2.
Yeah.
But I think high school and college are very different in both those ways too.
Totally.
It's a lot more complex.
Yep.
It's not, at Westwood we were always in shotgun. Mm-hmm. We're not always in shotgun at John Carroll. Yeah. Or, at Westwood we played cover 3 and cover 4 and that was pretty much it. We don't play all those at John Carroll. We play a whole lot of different things.
Oh, yeah.
And it also matters with the box too. Just talking a little bit about the schematics, the front 7, I mean, that also determines what coverage you're going to be in, right? So you can do a lot of different things at the college level that, high school level might not be doing.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is, These kids are younger and, they may not be able to process as much information as you do as the college level. And that's perfectly fine. I think that's a great way to develop players to get ready for college. And I think some programs are more sophisticated when it comes to what they're doing schematically than others. But that's also fine too. There's not just one way to win.
Yeah, that's definitely, when you look at the high school and the college level, I think one of the immediate things when it comes to the game is so much more mental, understandings of the defense, understandings of situations, cadences. I remember, in football, it can look a certain way. It could look like cover 2, but all of a sudden this safety is now turning into a robber. This one, you got the outside linebacker who's going to pop into the zone, and then you got you might have a blitzing, cornerback coming from the other side, and you don't know what's coming each play. In high school, it's somewhat more consistent. You see zone over here, and sometimes they'll throw some blitzes and whatnot. How much time have you put into the mental part of the game, since college, and how big is that in terms of not only just preparing for an opponent, but also when you're looking at taking the mental reps of route running, of where you're blocking, how to get downfield, all of those things. How much has that changed since high school, and how much time do you spend on it?
Yeah, so if I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't watch a lot of film in high school. That just was kind of something that I didn't do as much about myself. I did watch the teams we were preparing for a little bit, but that's probably the biggest thing is mentally. When I was a freshman in college, the biggest thing for me was knowing what to do. And I remember my first snap in practice of varsity rep was terrible. I ran the wrong thing. I had a missed assignment, just completely ran the wrong thing. And ever since that day, that's kind of my, welcome to college moment. And I think everyone has those. And then eventually you start to realize, like, okay, I got to be a little bit more, intelligent in the game. And so being able to watch film and break down film and learn your plays, that's probably the biggest thing, is learning your plays, learning your terminologies, knowing what you do on every single snap. That will be the most important thing for young college players to get onto the field.
There's so many players who are exceptional athletes, but they don't know what they're doing on the field, and the coach can't have that. That's a liability. So, I mean, that's square one. You could be less talented than someone, but if you know what you're asked to do and you do it and you execute, you're going to be the one who's going to be playing over someone who's an exceptional talent who is, incomplete with those characteristics.
100%.
So So I want to talk through some of the games this year. So in the Otterbein game, Wilmington Capital games, you had some receptions and got some action in those games. The first one's always a special one, and how cool was that? Was that a full circle moment for you when you had that catch, looking back at all the hard work that you've put in, also just the career of football? Now you've made this catch in a college game, and all of just a lot of different memories that kind of hit you when you have a moment like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you always got to have hard work to lead to success.
Yeah.
And while those may have been very non-meaningful plays, it was definitely a special moment for me to say, okay, I can get on this field.
Totally.
Right. I need to be better, but I can get on this field.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's first play or end of the game, it doesn't matter. You can get on this field and you can impact the team.
I remember when I went into my freshman year at a D3 football school, and I was just intimidated. I walked on campus. I was probably about 150 pounds. I was so nervous from that summer that I didn't eat well. My lifting wasn't great. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't belong here. There's 25, some of these teams have 26, 27-year-old people, and you're playing with grown men. And it is very intimidating because these are people who have worked hard for 4 years that are really physically, on another level, their speed and everything like that. And when I finally, just said, all right, put your head down, get to work hard. You know what? I'm going to get beat up a little bit out there. That's okay, but it's going to make me better. But when I had a play like that, my sophomore year, I got thrown in a nickel and I made, a tackle towards the end of the game. But I can't tell you how important that was for me because I was in the stat book. I was contributing to this team, and I knew it was going to be so important for the games ahead in my future. And looking back at how special that was to feel like, all right, I'm a part of this team, and I it's a little different thought process than day one of training camp when I'm like ready to tell mom and dad to pack the car up and head back home to Westwood. But what a special. The first ones are always special, and it also is motivating factors. So you guys have that great season, 9-3 last year, and now you have this great opportunity in a new league, and you got obviously some good non-league games as well. How excited are you for this upcoming season, and how motivated have you been this offseason? I mean, you were talking earlier, and you're telling us that you're in the best shape you've been, probably in your life with just all that hard work. How fired are you up come training camp in August?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely my most aggressive I've been throughout any summer going into a next college year. Going into my freshman year, I was motivated, but it wasn't like I knew what I had to do to be better. Going into my sophomore year, I was like, okay, maybe I can, contribute in some way. Right. So I was still motivated. But after this spring, I got a lot of action. I learned a lot from this spring. And I'm taking what I was told to get better at, and really working towards that. Not just doing my own thing. I'm not just going to go bench press for no reason, right? Or I'm not just going to go, run, 40s for no reason, right? I'm going to run what I need to run. I'm going to lift what I need to lift, and I'm going to study what I need to study to get better. And my past 2 years, I've probably been with some really talented receiver core. I've learned a lot from really talented receivers that have been at my school. This is probably the most open that the receiver room has been since I've been at John Carroll. And so I'm very excited, and I'm looking forward to a great season. I don't have any expectations of anything, right? Because I don't want to let myself down if I'm saying, okay, I want to, have this many yards, this many catches. I just want to get on the field. And that's the biggest thing for me. And I think I have a lot of potential to do that.
And you've put yourself in that opportunity to have that and to do some big things this year.
Yes, sir.
And it sounds like everything you've done, this offseason has been with purpose, and there's a reason behind it. And it's, obviously with the excitement and the goals for the upcoming season. And positional players are so important because you spend a lot of time with them. When you guys aren't doing the 11-on-11s or the 6-on-6s and whatnot, you're spending time with your positional coaches and players. How important have they been for you in your development? And, are there any guys you want to give a shout out to that have been, just above and beyond, really, left a positive impact on you and getting you, progressively better?
I mean, I've developed a way better relationship with my offensive coordinator, Travis James.
Yeah.
He has been the most impactful to me this offseason. He has a great knowledge for the game, and he's told me, with real talk, what you need to do to play, what you need to do to get better, right? And so building that relationship has probably been the most important and most impactful experience for me in the past 6 months. But right now, I mean, I'm kind of just focusing on myself, focusing on my game, watching film a lot. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the most impactful relationship I have right now.
When I look at JCU, what a beautiful campus. Like, what an amazing campus. What are some of the fun things you do outside of football? Obviously football it feels like a full-time job, but, there's also some good, downtime, and where do you spend that downtime?
I mean, the number one thing this past season was just chilling in the dorms. I was living in a 6-person dorm this season. And my whole friend group would just come down. We would hang out, watch movies, play 2K. That's probably some of the best memories from college is just chilling with your guys and just, having a great time. But also there's so many things to do in the city of Cleveland, the Guardians, the Cavs. There's a lot of great places to go down into like the flats and stuff like that. And I can't get specific about any of those things. But
we didn't hear that.
But there's so many great things to do on and off campus. I couldn't name one that's like super specific that I enjoy more than the rest.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so cool because it's a small campus, and like if you look on a map, you can see like the dorms, and the football field's like right there. It's right on campus. So like that's got to be a really fun game day type setup. What's that like? What's a typical game day? Is there a ritual that you guys go through or any tradition?
So every game day morning we have mass. That's probably the most favorite thing for me. It's just a time for the guys to be together. And just give thanks to the Lord for letting us play. And giving us the opportunity to play a great game. Then we got breakfast, pre-meal, nothing crazy. Then you get some downtime before the game, and then you must report at a certain time every game day. And the road in front of the archways that lead to our field is closed off on game day. And they have, cookouts, and they have tailgates on that road. And they have a DJ there. He's one of our running backs' dads. So it's kind of cool. And then, just practice whatever you need to do on the field before. We get about an hour to go out, throw, stretch, do all the things we need to do. Then we go back into the locker room, have meetings with our positional coaches. And then, we're pretty much off.
It's a great routine. It sounds very similar to what Joe was saying. Joe Vinci, he's saying that they do mass, beforehand in the team, and then, they have the different kind of meetings and whatnot after. But it's awesome. We used to do the same thing. Football is a collision sport, so we used to, we would do a team prayer to just hope everyone is healthy. And I used to love at the end, we have one of the parents' fathers who come in and he say, "Pray not for victory, because God willing, we will win." And I was like, that's a great line.
That's an awesome line.
Fantastic line. But it was a great routine. Like, it just made you ready, and it also got everyone kind of in that same bubble together, which was awesome. So JCU, obviously, you're a student athlete, so, you're chasing after your career too. Do you know what you want to do after John Carroll? And, how do you balance the workload between being a student and also an athlete?
Yeah, so what I want to do after school is coach.
Love it.
My aspiration would be to coach in the NFL, play call hopefully. But I'm studying exercise science right now. And so what would be another great opportunity for me would be some type of physical therapy, something where I'm working with athletes. I think that's my calling, is to work with athletes, and whether that's helping people back from injury, which I have experience doing on the wrong side, or, just getting guys better, healthy. Both of those I can fall in line with, and both of those I align myself with, but coaching's like the number one option.
So you love football.
Love it.
Love it.
My favorite thing.
And you love the ride, all the work, the steps, everything about that, the grind. I love that. Well, it's incredible, and great family of obviously your grandfather, your dad. I hear your uncle's a coach too. Like
Yep.
Some great minds to be able to learn and to watch some film with. Nothing better than that. With being a Westwood podcast, be remiss not to talk a little Westwood. And what a special community we have here. And just this past weekend, a couple of your colleague track and field runners, state champs. Some fantastic contributions this weekend. So the 4x400 boys team state champs, the 4x800 girls team state champs, and then Maeve Gavin, 800 meter champion this weekend. Incredible. And you were a track runner yourself in addition to football. What were your go-to events in track and field?
I was a sprinter, so
Yeah.
1, 2,
Yeah.
4x1, and then I tried jumping.
Yeah.
I tried long jump and high jump.
Yeah.
Neither of them I could get the technique down. I wasn't flexible enough, mobile enough to the point where I could do that. But
Yeah.
I turned myself into a pretty decent sprinter when I was
Yeah. Oh,
in
yeah.
high school.
Well, we get to work on it and then compete at it. And then when we look at like the 4x4 state championship team, 2 football players.
Yeah.
They had Charlie Jessup and Tino Giannopoulos. How much does track and field make help for football players? And really just kind of getting better, getting faster, and just working hard.
So originally I was coming off my injury. I broke my arm sophomore year during COVID.
Yeah.
And I couldn't play football that whole season. So my mom was like, all right, you're going to do something.
Yeah.
Right. And so she signed me up for track. And kind of the message that year was, I'm going to do this just to get faster and get ready for football right off this injury. And then I ended up falling in love with track that year.
Yeah.
Some of the guys that were on the team when I first joined were just awesome. It was a great environment, one I've never really been a part of before. Track's kind of different than any other.
It's a family.
It is a
big
family.
Yeah.
It is a family. And then, going into junior year, I decided I'd do winter track because I didn't have a winter sport at the time.
Yeah.
Loved that, but outdoor track was my favorite.
Yeah.
So talk us through some of your earliest memories in Westwood and playing football in Westwood.
So my first year playing tackle football was in 8th grade. Coach Hoff was my coach at Thurston.
Shout out Coach Hoff, legend.
And it was kind of a cool thing because where I was then to where I am now, 2 completely different players, right? I started off as a D end.
Yeah.
Probably, 5'10", 160,
The
right?
Javon Curse of middle school right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. And then, to be able to grow from that, and not just me, but all the guys I play with. Brendan Donahue used to be a D end as well.
No kidding.
Yeah, he wasn't even a quarterback then. Tony Maroon was the quarterback then.
Yeah.
A bunch of these guys that I played with at that age just transitioned into completely different players and completely better players as well.
Yeah.
But that was a really fun year. Wasn't, anything meaningful games, there's no championship. It was just go out and play.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of started my love for football, but high school was really where I fell in love with football.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we're so thankful for that middle school program, and it's so interesting. It's a different time period now. Joe Vinci, when we had him on a couple weeks ago, he said that's when he started playing. Football was the middle school, and I remember playing before with Pop Warner, but now is a different time. And shout out Coach Hoff. He's a great experience on with getting these kids together and having a team, and to be able to give them a flavor of what it's going to be like at the high school level. And he does a good job too, because it's the same system. That he'll typically run the same system there, and then Pindell he'll basically.
It is a big transition from Hoff to Pindell.
Yes, because then Pindell is going to say, "I'm going to throw it 70 times," and when you have all the receivers, why blame him?
Yeah.
But shout out Coach Hoff. He was my Pop Warner coach in 1999, 2000, and he's been still involved since. He's been coaching. He's assistant baseball coach for the last 25 years with Coach Whalen too. So pretty cool. But special, growing up in the town of Westwood. What elementary school did you go to, and what are some of your memories you look back at just kind of growing up in the town of Westwood?
So I don't know if you'll like my answer or not. I didn't go to a Westwood elementary school.
Really? Okay.
No, I kind of was moving around. I went to, do you know Meadowbrook in Weston?
Heard of it? Yes.
So that was a private school. I went there for a few years.
Yeah.
And then we eventually fell out of that, and then we went to a place called Blessed Sacrament in Walpole.
Yeah.
Catholic school. I went there for a year and a half until the end of 5th grade. And then I kind of was like, I kind of want to go somewhere closer. Yeah. And so Thurston was the place that we basically said, all right, you're going to go here, right? And so then I was a new kid, and, I kind of fell in love with it pretty early on. Yeah. And, ever since then, I went to Westwood schools.
Nothing better than just kind of, wearing the uniform of your town, the colors of your town.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty cool experience. Did you play with, a bunch of those classmates in other sports, like when you were at different schools? Did you know any of many of those kids?
So the only way I knew some of them was from AAU basketball.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I was a basketball player over football. Yeah. From 1st grade all the way till 9th grade. Yeah. I'd say that was when I was more of a basketball player. Yeah. And then, when I went to middle school, I was able to meet a couple of the kids that I played basketball with. And those aren't kids that I really have a great relationship with or had a great relationship with, but it was a good relationship. It was a starting point. Yeah. And then from there, I kind of, moved on into my own group, who I'm still really close friends with today. Yeah. But it's kind of cool the way that it all worked out, building those relationships. So,
you were mentioning at the high school, tough times with COVID, and then the different schedule they had the year out, with you guys had a spring schedule one of the years.
That was COVID year, the sophomore year.
Yeah, I remember watching those. And then you guys went into your junior year, fantastic year. You guys really solidified, or junior year, senior year was where you guys. So junior year, you guys got back in the action, and had some good momentum, but the wins and losses were not as good as the senior year. And obviously a lot of work that went in to have that senior year. What was the difference between that junior and senior year? And did you see what you guys were, really setting the stage for the teams to follow and that culture to follow? Yeah,
so, going from that junior year, it was kind of a brutal year. I don't remember our record. I think we were, 3-6 or 2-7. Yeah. Wasn't a great year. We had really good players. Yeah. Just could never really connect, both offensively and defensively, to the point where we were, competitive. Up until that Holliston game, that junior year. Yeah. That was a really great game, a fun game to play in, at home too. And then going into that senior year, we had a really good summer. And we had a lot of good leaders, and a lot of guys that really loved the game of football. And I think that was another separator. Yeah. Was my junior year. We didn't have a lot of the guys in the senior class that loved football. Yeah. And we all loved football. Yeah. At that time, all the seniors.
And when you have your core showing up during the summer doing the passing leagues together, and really seeing the good momentum and seeing the pieces, we got something special before we've even played our first game. Yeah. That's some good momentum going into the year. Mm-hmm. And when I look back at some of the skilled players you guys had, incredible talent. And, so some of the names, you had you at wide receiver, Thomas Kane. I remember Jack Crowley, hockey player. Shout out Jack. Andrew Weeman, Charlie Toole was a younger guy, back then. Thomas Warren as well. These are studs. These are some of the best receivers to come through in the last, 10, 15 years, of just football players. Did you guys know how special that core was? And what was it like just competing day in and day out with guys like this who are character guys, but also terrific talent?
You're forgetting one guy. You're forgetting my guy, Tony Maroon.
Tony Maroon. My bad.
Tony Maroon.
So he was a wide receiver.
He was a wide receiver. He dealt with a couple of concussions that year. Yeah. He was a wide receiver and then running back. Right. So
I remember him at running back, but he was an exceptional player.
I just had to put some respect on his name.
Yes, absolutely.
Too,
Shout out Tony.
My guy.
I remember him at running back. He was an exceptional.
He was. He went off against was it Nita? No. he went off against the one game senior year where we had to switch fields halfway through.
Oh, Medfield. Yeah.
Medfield.
Yeah.
He went off against them. That group was a great group. And when you named all the names just now, like, it really brought me back.
Yeah.
We had a really talented group that season. And I think the thing that just separated us is because we all had like different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like I was a track runner. Weems was a basketball player. Tommy Kane was a basketball player for the longest time, and then was just a football guy.
Yeah.
Crowley, hockey player.
Yeah.
Toole, I think, was he a baseball player as well? He
Yeah.
might have just been football as well. But we had a lot of different experience, a lot of different athleticism.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, Brendan Donahue leading all of us was just an amazing leader. Yeah. Great guy to play with. I was so happy to play with him.
Yeah.
And we just went out there and balled every day.
Yeah. I mean, so I got to give a shout out to Donahue. He's probably one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen at Westwood High School. And I played with a Hall of Famer, Jeff White, terrific quarterback. Donahue, is definitely in that category with a guy like Jeff White. He could sling it. And great pocket passer too, big kid, and he could move for a big guy. He could get out of there.
He could run.
Now, I remember a play that he had with you where he got out of the pocket, and you did a great job because it was kind of like a broken play, and he found you in open space. You went
Hopkinton?
down. It was Ashland, and it was called back.
Ashland.
Called back for it was a hold or
What
something.
player is that?
Yeah,
He threw it with his left hand.
Yes.
He switched and went like that, and it was ridiculous.
And I remember Jay Risha too going like, Jack McDaniels on the touchdown, and then like 10 seconds later it was like
back.
Flag on the play and
Stupid holding.
Yeah, but I also do remember that game, and I had sent you the clip. Is I would go to games time to time. I live in the maze, so I'll walk by, and now we're involved because we're at the games. We're calling it. But I knew you were a special player because there was a underthrown ball that Brendan had thrown to you, which doesn't happen often from Brendan. He's usually throwing it right on the money. But it was an underthrown fade route in the back of the end zone, and the defensive back had line of sight and
great leverage on me.
Yeah, and he was going up to get it. You went back in there to play defense. You knocked that ball down. Westwood then, I think 3 or 4 plays later, scores a touchdown, and you guys won by like 6 points. Yeah. So that play...
We were down by 1 point at that time,
Yes,
too.
Yeah, great memory. Yeah.
It was, plays like that are kind of what separates wins and losses.
Totally.
And I'm just getting away from me here because it could have been anyone that made that play. But, that was a play that was very different. We normally don't have that sort of miscommunication. Yeah. I don't know if the ball should have gone to me that play.
Yeah.
It did, and that was a great game because I remember against Ashland we would never be able to beat them because they would be running the.
You were running tough. Liam Fleming, who's related to the Flemings of Westwood, was a running back for them. He was running tough.
They would run out of the wing tee, old school, and it sucked because you couldn't practice against it.
No. Yeah, we covered a game this year. They ran that same formation just about every play, I think.
We killed them, though, right?
Yeah, it's 35-14.
They got off to a 14-0 start.
Yeah.
And then Westwood made some good adjustments. I think Coach Costello, who's the D coordinator, he started blitzing the A-gaps and really disrupting, any type of the jet sweep and just the timing. And that was it.
Yeah, you gotta kill them. Yeah.
But, how important is that in the game? So being unselfish to come back and to, knock that ball down, you don't know that Westwood's going to score, which obviously do. But I look at that, too, as like a defensive back. And there's a sweep that goes the other way. And you could say that's not to my side, so I have nothing to do with it. Or you could say, I'm going to run down there, and if he gets by them, I'm going to beat him at the 1 yard line. Because if you do stop him at that 1 yard line, you have 4 chances to keep him out and to get the ball back. And those are small, somewhat insignificant plays, but they can change, the outcome in a game. And how important is it to have that kind of mindset, especially at the high school level, to really, go above and beyond to do that job and set that example where other people will follow suit?
I think the big thing is just, wanting to win. Hated losing.
Yes.
I
love how you said hating losing.
That's probably what I hate losing more than I love winning.
Yeah.
And, being on your toes as a football player, that's kind of the little things that coaches might see at the college level again. And say, hey, like that's a very savvy guy.
Yeah.
He knows football.
Yeah.
He knows like, okay, if this is caught, this is a bad thing for the team, so.
Oh, I talked to a couple of college coaches, and I was asking them, what's the difference today, like when you're looking at a player and you look at like film, and they said they still like game film. Like instead of the highlights, they want to see the game film because the game film shows that you can see the player behind a game film. You can see if they're taking reps off. You see the body language, and if you see someone that is, running, that's on the backside, but running and taking those angles just in case there's a cutback or, just helping in, on plays and going above and beyond. Those are guys that are so, any team would want to recruit them. And it just tells a great story about the culture of that team and, what this player is made of. So, but we'll put that clip, that clip from the Ashland game on. It was a great play. And it was the biggest play of the game. If you don't do that, you guys don't win by 6.
No. There were a lot of great games from that season. I could go on and on about that.
So tell us, what were some of your favorite games and, ones that come to mind when you think about
definitely the Dedham game, the opener. Yeah. That was the first home opener that we won in I think 6 years at that time. And that was a great game. I mean, it was a long game. It felt really long. And then it gets down to the last 2 minutes. And we have a, go drive, right? We run a sluggo. And I actually ran the wrong route. Yeah. But Donnie threw it to me.
He saw you, yeah.
And, that put us in the red zone. I mean, that was one of my favorite games. The crowd reaction after the game was unbelievable. Yeah. Another game that I loved was the Ashland game was probably one of my favorites as well. Because it was just like we never won against them. That was a team that we could never beat because the way that they played just was so dominant at the time, and then we kind of found a way how to beat them, and we kind of just used that. And I don't think they've won against us ever since, but I hope that never happens.
You broke them.
I hope we broke them. But those were probably my 2 favorite games.
Yeah, you guys had a great game versus Quincy.
That was that's probably my favorite.
That game reminded me of a Patriots Colts game back where it was like whoever's got the ball in their hands at the end of the game is going to win.
We should have won it. I actually messed up on the last play, but we should have won it.
It was a great game. I mean, I remember the halftime score. It was like
after the first quarter, it was 21-21.
Yeah. Just electric. I mean, those obviously not the great defensive games, but exciting games because that just means the offense is really in tip top shape. But that was a memorable game. And then when we had like the captains for this year's team on Martucci, we had Mario Vinci, Drew Donegan, and they talked about the rivalry with Holliston. They were like. They didn't sugarcoat it. They're like, I hate Holliston. We hate Holliston, and we love beating them. Do you share that same sentiment? And how fun is high school rivalries?
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest rivalry. Yeah. When you think about it, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah. They're like 45 minutes away, but it is probably our biggest rival in football. And I don't know the history to that, but I mean, it literally, we hated them every year. We hated them. Yeah. That was like Pindell would have have like 3 goals at the beginning of the season at a meeting, and the third one would always be beat Holliston. Yeah, like that would be like the goal that we wanted to do, no matter what, which was something that I was like, okay, like this is real, and I love it. Yeah. But yeah, it was really fun. Then we had a couple other rivalries. Norwood was one that we never liked Norwood. Yeah. They weren't really our rivals, but I mean, I kind of had a little rivalry with them. Yeah. We beat them senior year to go to the playoffs, and it was really fun. Double overtime was awesome. But we had a couple little rivalries.
I covered the Norwood game this year for Norwood community as like a Westwood perspective. Yeah. So they went out and they beat Westwood, and shout out them. They got it done. And then you could tell the teams were it was an emotional game because at the end of the game we had to do an interview with a Norwood player, and they go, what was the key to winning against Westwood? Norwood kid says, well, we grew up tougher than Westwood. And I go, all right, save that for next year, sending this to Coach Bolton board, but that's what makes the rivalries fun. Yeah. It's just the back and forth. And having Norwood, which is right next door, they're always a really well coached team. They're always tough kids. It's a fun rivalry in itself. Outside of just, and it makes us prepared for when we do play Holliston at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I want to talk about leaders. Who were some of the leaders, either track, football, in general, that you, when you were going through Westwood High School, that you really looked up to in your time?
Are you referring to like players, or are you referring
Players specifically,
okay.
yeah.
One of them was Drew, not Drew, Brendan Donahue.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, he was probably the best player I played with in high school on the field. And he was a great person as well.
Yeah.
And then a track athlete that I would say, probably VJ Sharing. I don't know if you guys
Heard his
are
name
aware
a
of
bunch.
him.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
He was a hurdler when I was there, and he was just, fantastic.
Yeah.
Great kid, great leader, great student, great teammate as well. Those two are probably like two that I would say, one from each sport, that were really great leaders.
Yeah.
But I was on the field with a bunch of guys from football, Tony Maroon, Trent O'Shea, Tommy Kane, in their own ways that they were leaders.
Yeah.
But I mean, those two are probably standouts.
Is there a certain characteristic that all of them share that you see as a really important factor for leadership?
I'd say it's different. There's not one way to lead. Lead by example, or lead by voice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different types of leaders in sports in general.
Yeah.
And from track, I would say I was more of like a lead by example type guy. Always tried to work as hard as possible.
Yeah.
And same in football. I wasn't a guy that was very loud. I wasn't someone that talked a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't look super appealing as a football player, but I just tried to work my ass off.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of different types of leaders, and I don't think I ever played with one that was same as the other one.
Yeah.
They're all different.
They're all different. But, there's differences, and some have similarities. Some are good communicators. Some are work ethic seems to be one that is foundational. When you see someone who works hard, harder than everyone else, that's any profession or a sport. That's someone it's wow, just amazed and want to hitch my wagon.
Can't slack and be a leader at the same time.
Can't take shortcuts.
No.
Teachers, some great teachers at the high school. Are there any teachers you want to give a shout out to that left a positive impact on you?
Yeah, there's a couple. One that's not here, who was my track coach, Coach Madera.
Yeah.
He was a great person, great teacher, and great coach too.
Yeah.
Taught me a lot about the sport of track and just, how to be an athlete.
Yeah.
Some other teachers that I would say, I'll call him Coach Costello, but I mean, he was also my teacher at the high school. He was a great guy. I never had any teachers that kind of interfered with sports in the same way that those two did.
Yeah.
And I honestly just can't think of any
Yeah.
off the top of my head. I know after this I'm gonna think of them and be like,
oh, good. Dang. Oh, good. But I mean, so when you come back to Westwood, college for the different breaks and whatnot, what are your go-to spots for food? Is there a rotation, or do you have
it's a little bit of a rotation
like that? Yeah.
I'm a big DoorDash guy.
Oh, okay.
But if I had to choose a couple spots, Chipotle is probably my number one.
Yeah.
Easy, good food.
You go with the bowl there, burrito.
Yeah, all the way.
Okay.
Burrito.
Yeah.
But some sit-down places love Jake and Joe's.
Yep.
Jake and Joe's is my spot.
You get the TVs. You can put on 100 different games.
Yeah. Jake and Joe's, Acapulco's, Chateau.
Acapulco's. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Right across from Jake and Joe's, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That whole area is great.
A great spot.
Love it.
Yeah.
But I mean, big DoorDash guy, so every now and then I'll try a different place.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the main places from around here that I can think of that I'm those are my spots.
So those are kind of when you're on your flight home or driving back, you're thinking, okay, I'll probably DoorDash
Easy
tonight.
Chipotle if it's a flight home. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And Chipotle, what are you going with? You going with chicken, beef,
chicken
combo,
double chicken?
Yeah, double chicken.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the Chipotle especially great. It's on DoorDash as well, so that makes it easy.
It is. Yeah.
So I want to go back to track conversation a little bit. So we started doing track meets this year, and we had so much fun. It is electric.
It's great.
And we were having fun with it because we didn't know what to expect. So we're like, well, at least we could just go out and have fun. So we had Henrik Legers on the headset, kind of telling us who the players are, what's the event and all that. And we get excited. You see a green player, a green runner come to the front, we'd be, hopping into high gear and whatnot. I can't imagine when, there's no one that loves athletes from other sports coming into track and field and Ed Lyons, when he sees that. What a legend he is. But what was it like working with a guy like him? He's a coach that had been coaching, at Bentley for many years, and then here in Westwood, and has done terrific things with Coach Tian as well, and Medeiros and Coach Beard over the years. Where now look at where this program is today, with where winning state championships. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Did you see that as well? Did you see that ceiling? During your days in track and field?
No. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
No. I mean, when I was a sophomore, we were really not good.
Yeah.
In the spring season, we went 0-5 in dual meets, and then we had a couple guys, including myself, that went to later season meets, invitationals. But we had to grow a lot. My junior year was probably our best year as a team. But my senior year, we lost a lot of guys that were pretty good. And the guys that were left were not guys that would score a whole lot of points for a lot of different races. We would have, guys like me who would really only run the 1 and the 2 that I would get points for, and then the 4x1.
Yeah.
But then you'd have guys that jumped. You had guys that did long distance things. And the way that the points are in track, I think you guys have realized this, it's a little different,
crazy,
right?
Yeah.
It's a little different. You can kind of predict, where you're going to be in the points system.
Yeah.
But it's very fun. I love the environment.
Yeah.
You guys would have had a lot of fun during my senior year.
Well, it's just so fun because you have all these different events. You have all these different specialists. And then you got to throw the throwers in there too,
They're really fun to watch
and
too.
They're not, some of them are running, some of them are just throwing, and they're helping you win, so it's like when you throw all of that in there, it's pretty cool.
Well, half the times I would get off the bus or get onto the bus after a meet, and we wouldn't even know if we won yet. And we're like, well, we don't know. Like,
we're doing interviews, and we're like, I think you guys won, but we'll know
we
later.
Have no clue.
Yeah, we'll confirm later when
and
NASA.
You don't know your time right away either.
No,
that's what frustrated me with the invitationals.
Yeah.
The dual meets are a little easier because they're hand time, but
the
invitationals is like, oh my gosh, like you have no clue.
Yeah.
Like like when I was in the 100, I'm like, oh, what did I run? What did I run? And then when I ran my fastest time, I was like, hell yeah, I love that.
Oh yeah, and you're getting it instantly,
Yeah.
And, it's they had a couple meets this year where they had you could basically real time check it online
On
and
the phone,
whatnot.
yeah.
But it's the best is like we were talking about the culture. So we got Henrik who's out for the season, and he's Snapchatting. That's I guess his way of communicating instead of text is they're Snapchatting, and he's saying the score. It's coming right up to the booth where we are, and we're providing updates. Oh, it looks like that, a personal record of 28 seconds.
There we go.
But it was awesome, and what I've noticed in the culture is you could be a freshman on that team, you could be a senior, and there's no like looking down on someone because they're 2 or 3 years younger than them. Everyone's valued, everyone's looked at like as if it's a brother or sister, and there's a really unique mutual respect amongst everyone on that team, and everyone has each other's back, and it seems like the off the downtime together is really good for just building some rapport amongst your teammates and whatnot, and it's different than any other sport I've ever seen in Westwood.
Yeah, I mean it is pretty special.
Yeah.
It's more of a family aspect.
Yeah.
And when I was running, it was very much a family aspect.
Yeah.
Everyone was rooting for each other, hyping each other up. We would have music playing on a speaker until they told us to shut it off. And it's really fun. And then, when you go to these invitationals, you kind of just, it's a little different than dual meets.
Yeah.
Did you guys do any invitationals this year?
No. Trying to get out to, now I might try and get out to All States, I hear.
All States, yeah.
So I want to check that out.
They're fun meets. I mean, you sit down in, whatever spot you can find, and you're there, and you're just chilling with your guys, you know, eating food,
Yeah.
you know, and then eventually you start to warm up,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing I think a lot of people hate about track is you go for 3 hours and you're running for 30 seconds, like max. Like for me, I ran for, you know, I ran the 100 and 200. I ran
10 seconds, 20 seconds.
I ran. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't understand that. But I love that, you know, it's very, you have to be very detailed in the short amount of time that you have to compete. Right. But I mean, the environment was great. You know, it wasn't as much negative environment, which is different than football. It's actually a complete flip. And I love both of them for the same reason, the environment. You know, track is more, supportive. Football is more like, I hate you. I want to beat you really bad.
I want to beat you across the ball.
Yeah, exactly. But
both are good when it comes to competition. You know, so I'm in, you know, I've graduated well beyond high school and college, but I still have that competitive, ness in my DNA. And what I use it for is how can I become better at my profession? How can I be a better person? But I also like to compete. I like to go out and play golf and, you know, beat my friends, you know, in golf, you know, and brag a little about it and make sure that they know who won the last time.
There we go.
But it doesn't leave you, you know, you have the different kind of aspects of competition amongst both of those.
Kind of never leaves you.
It never does. No. And the same thing, I love how you mentioned you hate losing. And I think that is so critical when it comes to greatness, because if you love winning, you're going to come complacent. You're going to think winning, comes easy. Yeah. But when you hate losing, you remember like those, you can taste, you know, and just, you know, feel those losses where, you know, I'm going to do whatever it takes, go above and beyond to make sure I don't feel that again. Yeah. And, I carry that with me too. Yeah. You know, so, but last question for you. In my opinion, the Westwood football team does not go back to back without the foundation that you guys set. With your team, your leadership, you know, just the culture too of work ethic and execution. It was remarkable them to be able to go back-to-back TVL champs 2 years in a row against rival Holliston was awesome. You know, do you feel a piece of that, you know, what they accomplished with what you had basically set forth, you know, years before? A lot of those kids were looking up to you guys, and a lot of those kids were learning from you guys. Did you feel a part of that, and how special was it to see that happen, you know, when it happened in real time? Yeah,
I think both the teams that were able to go back to back, very different teams from what mine was senior year. Yeah. Only a very select few of guys that were big parts of those teams played my senior year for most of the games. And then a lot of guys were new, you know, new quarterback, new receivers, new line. Like I don't remember how many linemen we had start from my year.
Oh, completely new.
Completely new.
2 years in a row too. You know, basically seniors came in, and this year was everyone except.
That's a special thing to go back-to-back TVL champions with two pretty much completely new teams. Yeah. You know, you have some leaders that carried over, but other than that, you know, pretty new guys. Yeah. And that's a really special thing, you know. And that's the really cool thing about football is that it's not like a plug-and-play type deal. No. Yeah. You know, you have a new team every year. Yeah. And so to be able to, you know, replicate the success you had from the year prior with a completely different team is pretty special. It is. And, I mean, I give a lot of credit to the coaches there at Westwood.
Yeah, yeah. And you do it 1 year, you got the whole league looking after you, trying to pick you off. So to do it with that on the line too is pretty special. And quarterback of that team, Jack Holland, going to be going to John Carroll University.
He is. I toured him around John
Carroll.
Did
you show him? You showed him around. So you closed him. You closed him.
I don't know if I closed him, but yeah, I mean, I definitely showed him around the campus. Yeah. And I'm glad that he's going there.
And I guess I said that was the last question. I got, you know, in true Morgan spirit, every time I say is my last one, there's always one more. So, favorite football movie? There's a lot of good ones.
That's a really good question.
Because when I look at John Carroll, like, it makes me think of how beautiful that campus is. It makes me think about The Program. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Program.
Oh, add it to the list. It's a classic football movie from the 90s. But beautiful campus like that, just the architecture, the quads and whatnot. And it's a classic.
That's a tough one. What's your second question? Do you have a second one?
No.
I thought that was
no. That's
two.
No. Yeah.
That's a tough one.
my initial first question was the football one. This being the second one. There's a lot of good ones.
I mean, yeah.
Evan, what you got? You got one?
The longest yard.
Oh, that's a good.
The
one.
longest yard is a great one.
The
comedy
Sandler
and
one.
football. Yeah.
Sandler
Oh, I was gonna
Well,
say,
I
yeah,
like
they have the
Little
one
Sa-
in the '70s too.
That one's a good one, but I like Sandler.
Yeah.
I like Adam Sandler movies. So.
What's the one with Al Pacino as the coach?
Oh, Any Given Sunday.
Any Given
that's a
Sunday is
good
probably my favorite.
Great speech.
Yeah. Oh,
At
amazing.
the
speech.
inches.
I
The
used
inches,
to.
we need her
I
everywhere.
used to listen to that speech before every game my senior year.
Yeah. We used to. So funny you say that. So my junior year at Westwood High School playing football, we used to play that speech before games.
It's a great speech.
And we used to get fired up. When a Super Bowl, we did that. We used to listen to that speech before a hockey game my freshman year. Before the playoff hockey games, we won a state championship.
awesome.
So if you guys want to win a state championship, play Inches, the speech, Inches from Any Given
best-
Sunday.
the best
But it is so
speech.
powerful, with what it takes to win and to win together and, to forget everything that, happened, behind you yesterday. What matters is right now and who you're with, you know. So, but Jack, thank you so much. This was a blast catching up with you, and super excited for the upcoming season. I know you are, and you've been putting a lot of hard work into that, and looking to keep tabs on you throughout the season, and best of luck in the new conference as well. And definitely looking forward to that John Hopkins game early on in the season. I think we might have to stream that on Westwood Media Center.
Maybe.
A lot of eyes on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me. This is a really great opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Jack. And folks, thank you for tuning in. Wolverine Report episode 38. We'll see you all on the next one.
Awesome.